Hello Math 7 students, today is circumference practice. It's really just a practice day. This video is going to be very short where I just go over a different types of problems. Really today is meant to be a practice day where you do the work and then you can check your answers. So we will get started with a quick poll, just a quick review here. Find the circumference of the circle if the radius is 7 centimeters. Pause the recording until you have your answer and only continue when you have your answer so we can check it together. All right, with this problem, I have given you the radius. And in order to find the circumference after knowing that the radius is 7, it's always good to understand the relationship between a radius and a diameter. If I know the radius is half of a diameter, so I can also think about this as a diameter being the radius doubled. 7 times 2, which is equal to 14. If you know the diameter, you know that you just multiply that diameter by pi. And that's how you get the circumference. Now, with that being said, that means if I have the radius, that means I'm taking the radius, I'm doubling the radius, and then after I double the radius, I'm going to just multiply all of that by pi, and that will give me the circumference. I just want you to understand, you don't have to say, oh, I always have to have the diameter. Just understand the relationship between diameter and radius. If you know the diameter, you just multiply by pi. If you know the radius, you double it and then you multiply it by pi. In any case, when you type this into your calculator, you end up with a big long ugly decimal, 43.98229. Now this problem did not say how to round it. In class, I told students in class that they should round to the nearest tenth. So if we are rounding to the nearest tenth, what is that going to look like? That means I need a tenth place. It doesn't mean I just keep what's in the tenths place. It means I need a tenths place decimal. So in order to decide how to round, I need to look past that in the hundredths place. In the hundredths place, I have an 8. And an 8 forces the 9 to round up, which means to the nearest tenths place, I am going to have the 9 rounded up to a 0, making the 3 round up to a 4, and really I would have 44 or 44.0 rounded to the nearest tenths place. You could also, I think it's also a good habit to get into, anytime it doesn't say to round to a certain digit, I would always round to the hundredths place. And here's the reason why I think it's a good idea to round to the hundredths place. Most people think of pi as 3.14. It's not, but 3.14 is accurate to 2 decimal places, which means we could probably rely on any calculations that we do with 3.14 to be accurate to about 2 decimal places. So if instead of rounding to the tenths place, if in this problem, if I wanted to round to the hundredths place, I'll just come over here. That means if I am rounding to the hundredths place, that means I am keeping the digit that's in, or I need 2 digits. I need a decimal in this place. So I would look past that to the thousandths, and the 2 is not going to have any impact on the 8. So rounding to the nearest hundredths place would be 43.98. Interesting how different those are just by rounding to the tenths place and the hundredths place. On today's assignment, it does tell you for each problem what you should be rounding to. You should be rounding to the nearest tenth. For most problems, if I want anything different, I will be stating that in the directions. So let's get started on our circumference practice. On this circumference practice, before we can even start finding the circumference, we need to make sure that we have a solid understanding on the relationship between radius and diameter. So you're going to notice that the first set of problems, 1 through 6, really even 1 through 8, in each one of these, I'm asking you for the radius. Right? I just want the radius. So notice in problems 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and even others, what is the measurement that I'm giving you? That says 5.6, but what is that measurement that I'm giving you? Luke? I am giving you the diameter. And if I know the diameter, how do I use that information to find the radius? Grant? Exactly. So what I really understand is it takes 2 radius to make a diameter. Here is 1 radius. Here is that second radius. So a diameter divided by 2 will give me one of those radius. So I will go 4.6 divided by 2. I would type that into my calculator and it will give me the radius. Rounded to the nearest tenth, that is going to be, oh, I'm doing this in my head pre-coffee, so I'm going to say 2.8. Okay, 2.8, what is the measurement? Miles, right? Rounded to the nearest tenth. Don't forget your units. I'm going to let you do 2, 3, and 4. Take a look at 5 and 6. It's no different. It's just, instead of a diagram, I'm just telling you that there is a circle and the diameter is 6 meters. You need to find the radius. Your process doesn't change, just how the information is presented to you changes. Read directions for 7 and 8 though. Still says find the radius of each circle. Now it's including this interesting piece of information that you need to use your calculator's value of pi. Round your answer to the nearest tenth. Why is it all of a sudden saying we need to use pi? Because it is giving us the circumference. So this is where a really helpful understanding or maybe memorization of that equation is going to be really helpful. If I know the radius, I can double the radius to find the diameter. Once I know that, then I multiply it by pi and it gives me the circumference. So eyes on the screen, please. Even those students I know are working ahead, I want you to stop it. I want your eyes on the screen. I want to help you see how we can do this in fewer steps. Okay? What you're probably wanting to do is just take the circumference, which it gives me as 62.8, and you'll say, first I'm going to divide by pi, which is accurate. That's going to give me the diameter. Then I'm going to divide by 2. That'll give me the radius. Or understand, I'm just trying to copy these down. How do I undo multiplying by pi? Dividing by pi. But how do I undo multiplying by 2? Dividing by 2. I can do that in one step. I can divide by 2. I can divide by pi all in one step as long as I divide the other side by 2 pi as well. So save yourself a step in your calculator. Instead of dividing by pi and then dividing by 2, just do it in one single step. Notice that I'm still going to have the radius all by itself, but in one single calculation, which we can do together, I'm going to have 62.8 divided by, probably a really good idea to use parentheses here. I'm dividing by 2 pi. Close those parentheses. And it will do that in one single calculation. Another way that you can do that would be to get your fraction bar first. That way you can set it up as 62.8. If you set it up this way, you no longer need those parentheses because it's going, that 2 and pi will be grouped together, and so it will divide by that together. Pi. And it's going to give you that same thing there. Yes, Grant? Okay, we'll talk about it in a second. When I do that calculation, I get 9.99 using the calculator's version of pi. 9.99, however, round to the nearest tenth, just like we saw in our warm-up. This is the tenths place. However, when I look beyond into the hundredths place, I can see that that 9 is going to force this up to a 0, which is going to force that up to a 10. So rounded to the nearest tenths place, don't just say 10, say 10.0. Your calculator, I know when you tried entering it as a quick pull, it got rid of that last decimal place, and I understand that. But on your paper, you want to make sure that you are including that 0.0 to show that you did round it to the nearest tenth place. I would just like to show you the reason why we need to be really precise. Again, eyes on the screen. Some of you are trying to work ahead. I need you to be listening right now. When it says use your calculator's value of pi, it is important that you follow that direction. What if I didn't? What if I did, let me just, 62.8 divided by 2 times 3.14, just the approximation. Okay, so in this case, you can see that we got the same answer rounded to the nearest tenths place, but what if the directions were round to the nearest hundredths place? That would give us a different answer, right? So you can see the full value of pi, how many decimals it gives us, how accurate that is, just the approximation, we lose a lot of that accuracy. So please make sure you are using your calculator's version of pi. For the next set of problems, the directions are find the diameter. Once again, this is the relationship between radius and diameter. In each one of these, you can see that I have marked a radius. If I give you a radius, how do you use that information to find a diameter? Tanner. Exactly, we need two of them. A radius with another radius, that is going to give me a full diameter. So if I know the radius, I multiply it by 2 and it gives me the diameter. 11 times 2 is 22. To the nearest tenth would be 22.0 meters. I'll save 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. Just recognize 13 and 14 are just the same information, just without a diagram. I'm telling you that the radius is 9 feet. For the next set of problems, we're going to see something similar to what we just saw. Find the diameter of each circle. Use your calculator's value of pi, round your answer to the nearest tenth. This time, I'm giving you the circumference. So if I give you the circumference, you need to be able to work backwards to find that diameter. We know that a diameter multiplied by pi is going to be the circumference. So if I want the diameter, you simply, in one single step, just need to divide by pi. So in my calculator, I will be typing in 50.3 divided by the calculator's version of pi, 50.3 divided by pi, and we have a 16.01. D is equal to 16.01, but rounded to the nearest tenth. I'm not going to keep that 0.1. I need this tenths place. I look into the hundredths place to see how that affects the tenths place, and that is going to remain 16.0 inches. I'll leave 16 for you. Just about done. Let's move on to the next set of problems here. On all of the remaining problems, 17 through 28, I just want you to find the circumference. Here's what you need to be careful of. In some problems, when I'm asking for the circumference, I'm giving you the diameter. In some problems, I'm giving you the radius. So you just need to make sure that you take a minute to decide what information is given and what do I do with that information. These are the last two that I'm going to do. If I give you the diameter, we remember that it's simply the diameter multiplied by pi is equal to the circumference. We'll use the calculator's value of pi and we will round to the nearest tenth. I'll leave that one for you to complete on your own. Number 20, however, I'm giving you the radius. I know that a radius doubled is going to give me that diameter, and I know when I have the diameter, I just multiply it by pi. So the radius times 2 times pi is equal to the circumference. So I know what I need to type into my calculator. Don't forget to round to the nearest tenths place. And that is one of each type of problem. Again, down here, 25 through 28, no diagrams, but I'm still giving you pieces of information that you'll need to reuse in order to answer the question. That's it for this video. Very short, just mostly instructional. The answer key is in Canvas, so you can practice, check your answers with the answer key, and then make any adjustments that you need to. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.